Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. This video is going to be dedicated towards the police. As we know, there are some coppers who embody the very spirit of being a proper policeman or woman. However, there are those, of course, who are more bent than a 9-bob note. But more than anything else, this is a call for the police within there who actually put morals and integrity before money and before government. I call for them to start speaking out against their superintendents, their superior officers. Because I accept not every copper, as said, is more bent than a 9-bob note. I accept that. But if you see corruption or you see wrongdoings and you do nothing about it, then you are just as bad as the people doing it. You're just as bad as the people who allow this to continue. Whether it's allowing certain demographics to continue preaching hatred or inciting violence or going to commit terroristic acts, or whether it's to do with the G-gangs of the religion of peace. Because the way I slice it is, yes, a lot of these officers are just doing as they are told. However, you could say the same thing about the NZs. And I'm not talking about the New Zealands, if you catch my meaning. It is time that these people grow a pair of balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, and challenge their managers, their superior officers, the people pulling the strings of the force, in their numbers. Because the more pressure you put on the stroke number one at these superintendents, or lack of intelligence thereof, as said, stroke number one, or maybe I was right first time, maybe then we can actually get some semblance of sanity in this place. Think about it. If a group of police officers come together to fight a common cause, fight the good fight, it will take a substantial amount of power away from those forces. And while I accept that it may put their livelihoods in danger, it may cause them to lose their jobs, I would only say risk it if you are physically able to, if you have the capacity to. I obviously can't do this because I'm not in the police force, and of course I wouldn't be able to get in one because of how big I am. But it is extremely important that we find the fight somewhere, because all of these super unintelligents that are running the forces are effectively undermining trust in the British people, or rather our trust in them. And it was like I said in the past when I mentioned the was it living in a ditch or life in a ditch or something like that? It was something along those lines. I covered him back when he was pepper sprayed, when Tommy Robinson was pepper sprayed in November for trying to attend an anti-Semitism rally. But this guy eventually went on to say that if these people are not willing to take these kinds of actions and hold these wankers in higher positions to account, or they're not willing to stop the injustice going on in this country, then there are no good police officers, quite frankly. And as I said, not everyone is like that. Not everyone is willing to sit idly by while the shit hits the fan. But if these people come together, the people who have the means to have a plan B, if you will, if more people come out and expose these wankers and put pressure on the super lack of intelligences that are the superintendents, then maybe we'll have a chance of making progress with them. Because one thing is definite, whether you agree with these points or not, and that is the swamp definitely needs to be drained in every aspect. It's pretty obvious with what's going on in this country that we're suffering from two-tier policing and, of course, a two-tier judiciary, or two-tier justice system, or whatever you want to call it. That is unequivocal. But it is effectively like Islam. If there are no people in Islam who are willing to call out the extremists in their ideologies, then there are no good Muslims. Of course, there are people like Raja Shah, or whatever his name is. It was Raja something or other. But he went out of his way to expose the Labour councillors who are complicit in covering up the G-gangs. That is an example of a person who actually understands and respects our country. And there are quite a few Muslims that have got up on the stage of all these rallies that have been taking place in the past. The ones organised by Tommy Robinson's team. They've got the balls. They are an example of good Muslims out there who are willing to fight for Britain. The only fight a lot of these police officers have is how quickly can they get themselves over to the donut box, or how quickly they can go and arrest Bob for putting that Facebook post up, or YouTube, or wherever. Then they've got a whole load of fight. And before anybody uses the joke of the donuts on me, joke's on you, bitch, because I don't eat donuts, I don't really like them. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make on all this is this. The police can definitely do more to earn back the trust of the British people. And speaking of which, I think some more of that trust has been eroded by the fact that now it's coming out that some of these Merseyside police were actively lying about Southport. And I don't want to keep focusing on the negatives of the police, because I know what a good job the police can do. It's just that more often than not, the police decide to side with the terrorists and the murderers and the grapists, etc., etc. They often side with the so-called religion of peace because they are too scared of being called racist. Even though Islam is a religion, and therefore you cannot be racist against a religion. Now, if I went out of my way and said all Christians are absolute people buggers or something like that, would that be racist? No. Would it be said in bad taste? Yeah, fuck it would. Hey there, nice to see you again. Sitting in here waiting for us. Anyway, if I said that, it would be bad taste, abso-fucking-lutely. But is it racist? No. But the police should be serving the British public without bias. And they should be enforcing the law fairly and equally. But they have every chance to make things right with the British public. They have every chance to enforce the law fairly. But in most cases, we find that the police often take the side of the non-Indigenous British people. And by that, of course, I'm meaning the usual suspects of Islam, illegal immigrants, people who basically aren't white British. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. They have no desire to actually enforce the law on Islam because they're worried about what will happen if they do it. For example, there are times where they have arrested people for throwing a brick through someone's house or a police station, or they start inciting hatred or violence, and then they arrest a couple of people or whatever, and then all of a sudden, when that fanatic of Islam is arrested, the imam turns up with a whole gang of people because they are a literal hive mind. They have the same hive mind as ants do. If one is in trouble, they will bend over backwards to make sure...
Do you do TikTok?
No, I don't do TikTok, mate, but I'm on YouTube. Abatha_X. See you, bud. God, getting more and more popular with each passing day. Anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. So, when it's one or two people arrested from the religion of peace, the imam will usually show up with a whole bunch of people because of the hive mind they have. And basically what will end up happening is they'll threaten the police, we're going to get nasty if you don't release that person.
I listen to you every day.
Oh yeah?
And at first I thought it was a bit crazy. But you know, the more I listen to you, the more I actually fucking agree with you, and you make a lot of fucking sense.
Well, I try my best. Abatha_X. ABA.
That's YouTube, yeah?
Yes, that's correct. ABATHUR_X. I mean, I do try to make sense. I do have a few screws loose, but I think I'm just about connected. X for xylophone, which I'll probably need to play some soothing tunes to go to sleep tonight. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, yeah, thanks so much, bud. See ya. God, I really am getting around. Fucking hell. Maybe we could get back onto it now. Jesus. But, Islam, they have no tolerance of our society and our culture. And our police are bending over backwards to them. Hell, they kneel for them, for Christ's sake. And what is the literal definition of Islam? It is submission, surrender. There are so many people right now that are scared to speak out about Islam because of the violent tendencies of that group. This isn't just the police, this is ordinary people as well. But we could all band together against this, and we could show them that Islam is not going to be allowed free reign in our towns and our cities. That they are not going to bring in Sharia law to control us. And if Keir the traitor Starmer wants to try and arrest us all, he's more than welcome to try. But I don't think he's got a few million cells to put us all in. Sure, you could say he made some room for the Southport rioters and the political prisoners of Southport, but it doesn't change the fact that he won't be able to fit all of us in there. Not unless, of course, he's going to pack like 10, 20 people into a single cell like a can of sardines. But the police, I can't stress enough, they need to do more. It is their job to serve the British people and be impartial, unbiased, and dish out justice equally and fairly. And if they're not willing to do that, then they are not fit for purpose. Akin to Keir the traitor Starmer not being fit for purpose to run a bath, let alone this country. The way I slice it is we have so many people who want to put trust in the police, but in good faith they cannot, such as myself, because we have seen the two-tier policing that they are willing to engage in. Another good example was during lockdown, or the scamdemic, as some people like myself will call it, where we were told that these masks don't work at first, but then all of a sudden they changed the narrative to say, oh, you need to wear a face nappy whilst lockdown is going on, otherwise you're not allowed out, or you're not allowed in shops, or you're not allowed in wherever. And they forced this mentality upon us to try and control us. And the police were there, basically, not so much as stormtroopers anymore, because obviously he wasn't in power during the lockdown, but they were effectively the Gestapo. They acted in bad faith to enforce laws that were effectively unlawful. And they were trying to say, oh, you're not allowed to have a walk on the road or have a hike or whatever. Like, take a fucking hike, quite frankly. Police need to understand, we aren't just impulsively angry. We aren't just hating on the police just because it's a fun activity. Let me tell you, we're doing it because we see the injustice going on. I don't think me as this angry little man that can't see a sense of reason or cannot respect some of what the police do, because there are good things the police do, but the cold bitter truth is there are so many worse things that the police have done or have not done that effectively put them in such a bad light. I mean, between the G-gangs, the two-tier policing, the way they acted during the scamdemic, it's understandable why a lot of people do not respect the police right now. It is simply because they are not acting in good faith. The only faith they act in is the so-called religion of peace, because they're too scared of being called a racist by calling these people out. Now, I'm sure there's somebody right now that this is fresh in my mind, that is probably sitting here saying, oh, look at this horrible, vulgar, disgusting young man using disgusting language on the bus, being inconsiderate. Well, as I said before, and I will make this point again, there comes a time, maybe if it was like 4 or 5 years back, you could say, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that, quite frankly. But we're at a time now where we can't pussyfoot around. We're at a time now where we have to talk about it, whether it's out in public, in private, or wherever. The cold bitter truth is, this country is sinking. It is sinking from all of what's going on in this country. Not just Keir the traitor Starmer, but the G-gangs, the terrorist atrocities, the illegal immigration, just to name a few. And what are our police doing? They're more interested in going after Brenda on Facebook, or Bob on Facebook, or YouTube, or wherever, to go after people who posted something that the establishment disagrees with on social media, which again is something the media would rather not talk about. Do you think I take pleasure in having to mention this on the bus when most people probably just want to get on with their lives? Of course I don't. I would rather be in a position where our country, our police, and the other public services are serving the British people as they should. Remember, people shouldn't fear their governments. Governments should fear their people. And likewise, the police should be serving their people, not the government. This is why we need more good-minded policemen and women who, as I said, have got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to be able to call out the higher-ups, to go after the ones pulling the strings, because obviously, yeah, I do get a little bit impulsive, and sometimes there's been a couple of times where even I've shouted at the police. But here's the thing, it's out of this frustration more than anything that we're seeing our two-tier police force acting in bad faith, that they are not doing as they are required as part of their civic duty, where we have police officers who are more interested in taking the side of the people committing the crimes rather than the people that are the victims of said crimes. They're more than willing to go after people like us who post stuff on social media, but if you ring the police about a burglary, you'll be lucky if you get an officer in a week. People wonder why in the force we're so hostile. Shut up, you. Anyway, they wonder why we're so hostile towards the police. It's the way they've treated us. Respect is a two-way street. Unless you're in a dead end. In that case, it is just one way. Anyway, it is a two-way street. You can't expect respect from one side, but then not give it yourself. That's like if a friend takes you out to a restaurant for a nice meal, and you're supposed to pay for it, and then they're like, you can pay for it, buddy. No, that ain't gonna wash. So I call for the British police, as I said, in groups of people, because if you go up there on your own, I reckon the superintendent's gonna be like, get gone. Simple as that. I think there needs to be groups of people who see the superintendent, or the lack of intelligence, or whatever you want to call them, and then put the pressure on them in a group, because they'll find it much more difficult to apply pressure if there's more than a few of you there, because then they can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to get rid of you. No, they'll have to think, oh God, there's a group of people here that they're all thinking the same thing. Maybe I've got to rethink things. And don't think it gives me pleasure, me saying this about the police. Don't think that I'm trying to be sadomasochistic or whatever. I am not trying to be that in any way, shape or form. But the cold bitter truth is, if they're not willing to serve us, then we need to take drastic measures. Like I said, nothing would please me more than to not have to talk about this on the bus, quite frankly. But as I said, we're in a situation we have to talk about these things, whether it's in public or in private. We can't put this off anymore. If it was like I said, I wish you'd shut up. Anyway, it comes down to this. If it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I could say, yeah, they probably don't need to hear this, and they probably don't need to hear my filthy mouth. But we can't sit idly by. Like, the fuse is running, and there is a powder keg of civil unrest that is about to hit us. A massive powder keg. We have to do something about it. Thank you. And I can finally get away from that damn tannoy. But the way I slice this is the police have to do something. I am calling upon them to find people who are like-minded, who disagree with the whole two-tier policing society, who disagree with the idea of treating one section of people differently from another. I have this desire to want people in the police force to actually stand for truth and justice rather than dishonesty and injustice. I want more police to actually hold their superiors to account. I want more police to actually understand the danger this country is in. I want more police to actually do their damn job impartially, without bias, and not be a political police force. Because right now, we can see the vast majority of these people are nothing more than stormtroopers. Mark Rowley, of course, will deny this. So will Sadiq terrorist sympathiser Khan. So will Keir the traitor Starmer. He'll think the police are doing a wonderful job, even as they're probably, I suspect, cutting the taxes of them, or cutting how much funding they get, or whatever. Because that's what Keir the traitor Starmer does. And apparently, and this is just speculation at the moment, apparently he's trying to disguise the deal with about the Chicago Islands. Chicago Islands. That's the new one. Anyway, apparently there's this rumour going on that he's planning to disguise this deal with the Chicago Islands as this increase in defence funding. Now, I would love nothing more than that to be wrong, quite frankly, because I think we've seen more than enough corruption from Keir the traitor Starmer to last a lifetime. But to finally close this all off, there needs to be some action from the police. They need to come out in their droves and rebel against the the intendants. Because the way I slice it, they're the ones who are the real threat. There are ordinary people who are just doing their jobs, but unfortunately, the NZs also did the same thing during World War II, and that's what we have to remember. So the next time somebody says, I'm just following orders, tell them, get your groups, go to the superintendents, and challenge them on it. It's about time we told them and gave them the determination and the will and the desire to fight back against the two-tier society. Insanity is literally trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The only thing that's going to be different, if, for example, I punch a brick wall, is I might go, ow, one time, and the other time I might be like, ow. That's about it. Other than that, it's still gonna fucking hurt. That's what it comes down to. And if our police are not willing to make changes, then they cannot blame us if this country falls to civil unrest.